Hey everybody, my name is Rydo, and the Steam Winter Sale has begun. It ends January 3rd, 10 p.m. Pacific, or 10 a.m. Pacific, or 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And so we're going to do a little window shopping. Now, the thing here is I can't really tell anybody specifically without knowing what games they've already bought on Steam what would be a good deal to buy right now. So all I can really say as far as that is the sale's on and you'd have to shop yourself. But what I can tell you is that I have slightly below 1,000 games in my collection, so I do know some good games and already own some good games, and I have about 2,000 games in my wish list that I want to get, so I'm about 1/3 towards what I would consider a complete collection. And so it will be based off my own personal wish list that I'll be window shopping through this. And of course, these episodes, when there is a sale, this is the opportunity in which I ask people to either support me down below through Patreon, or friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list, or you can gift gift cards if you don't want to pick, or just gift me a game they'd like me to see. Now is the time, since these games are for sale. It's always important to remember though, just because it's on sale on Steam doesn't mean it is the cheapest on Steam. So if you're looking for the best deals ever, you might need to use some of the mini Steam plugins for Chrome that are available. So the first thing I want to do is, this is the default zoom, but it's not what I particularly enjoy, so I'm gonna zoom up the page a little bit and go ahead and go back so that we can get the image to just go this way. See, so like today's highlighted deals, they're going to be very specific to me, and I imagine other people's highlighted deals are not going to be that much. Let's click here and see what the extremely cozy cottage of surprises is all about. Generally speaking, what happens on the big sales, it didn't really happen in the Halloween and November sales, is you would get trading cards. If there aren't any real trading cards that you're getting for purchases for like every $10 of games you buy, that probably indicates that they're getting away from trading cards, which would be nice, but it also means you're not really probably going to get any kind of bonus. Sometimes these sales have mini games. I don't think this one would, because it also has the end of the year nominees that we're supposed to vote on, and we'll do that in a second. So Steam's extremely cozy cottage of surprises. In the midst of your dreary winter travels, you stumble across a light-filled gateway. The owner greets you warmly and happily gives you treats of varying usefuls. Starting now until January 3rd, each door, click a door each day and receive up to 3 free digital items. Okay, so I am seeing what this is, and it's not really zoomed in, right? So it's basically a advent calendar with only a few days. In fact, if it's starting on the 20th and ending on January 3rd, it's like 9 days, and it's kind of more of a Kwanzaa calendar at that point more than anything, because that would be the only real period covered. So let's see what we get. I don't know if this gift is going to be the same for everybody. You get some everyday socks, some cozy cottage, Monster Hunter World. This is probably just a background image and an emote that you could use in chat on Steam, which is pretty useless. And let's just see what these items really are. Yeah, this is a this is a nothing item, of which there's a lot that you could eventually sell. Let's see. You consume this item to increase your knickknack collector badge level. Use your knickknack, using a knickknack will remove it from your inventory. So it is a trading card, it's just not really being depicted as a trading card. For example, here, this is labeled clearly as a trading card that you would be using to make a badge from. This is just an emote. You can turn into gems. 100 gems is not amazingly great. And this is a background image, and most of these background images are not amazingly great either. Like, the ridiculousness when they try to put value on these things, when if you really wanted a background image like this, you could probably find it. You know, you could find it online for free, and the chat on Steam is not something that I use particularly well. So none of those things are particularly interesting. We can go over here to badges, I suppose. We'll have to jump around the store quite a bit. So there is a trading card. Ooh, they've got this new thing where the average cost of completion of a badge is 48 cents. So the thing about badges is when you complete a badge, you get 100 XP. When you get over a certain level of XP, you level up. When you level up, you have this issue of more people that can friend you, which inherently locks down new people to Steam down to like 5 or 10 people to really friend, which is kind of unfortunate. And it lets you change your profile slightly, but after you hit about level 50, you've got as many profile slots as you could possibly do anything with. It's a really dumb system that feeds into itself, and it's really just designed to be manipulative. It's a microtransaction type thing. It really manipulates people with OCD and that completionist collectionist idea. For example, this person who friended me, Aquarius, he or she is at level 262, and I'm fairly certain all they do is trading cards, and they don't even play video games, and maybe even they make some money off of that. So doesn't seem like we're getting too much. And then apparently you also would have gotten budget cuts, which is the name of a game that I think is a VR game. Let's see. Yeah, budget cuts is a VR game that, according to this, I don't own. Now I have several plugins. If you check out my end of the year Steam wishlist cleanup series, which is happening right now, I'd cover all of this. But yeah, this is $14.99, and it doesn't seem like I own this game, so I don't understand what that means. Like, why they are promoting this game, this VR only game, since I don't have VR, as if I own it. I guess maybe it's just this image itself is a ad. So let's look at the frequently asked questions. What items can I get from the extremely cozy cottage? You may receive in-game items, community items such as Steam backgrounds, emoticons for participating games, as well as the consumable knickknack specifically for the Steam winter sale. What happens when I use the knickknack items? Knickknacks each convey a unique and special power upon a person consuming them. Okay, not really, but they leave you with a cozy, comforting message and an additional level for your knickknack collector badge. Using a knickknack item will remove it from your Steam inventory. Just like, do knickknacks expire? Just like the 2018 Steam Winter Sale trading cards, these items will expire February 2nd, 10 a.m. Pacific time. How many doors open each day of sale? You can open one new door for each day of sale. Don't worry, if you miss a few days, you can open doors from previous days until January 3rd, 10 a.m. Pacific time, when the sale ends. At least they're being very consistent about telling you when the sale ends. They've got it right, right on the front page. How many items can I get in the Steam's Extremely Cozy Cottage? You can get 3 items from each door that you open. There are 14 doors total, 1 for each day of the sale. You can participate. Accounts that are not limited will be able to open doors and receive items. Full participation rules can be found here. This looks like maybe Steam has changed their website a little bit in some places. So let's go back to the inventory then, and let's see, how do we consume this? Receive for a task, complete task during the day. So do we just click the where to consume it? These socks don't have any fancy designs or special fabric, but you can always count on them, and you can dust furniture with them. Okay. So I clicked where, and it glitched. Which is pretty typical of Steam's store. And the socks are gone. Now. And I have a ton of trading cards because I'm a sucker and I get into trading cards and making badges, and there's all kinds of shenanigans you can play trying to get ahead with that. What that didn't seem like that did, however, was make any progress towards anything. Like, I don't see a badge here that we made progress to, and I don't see any new inventory items here. So what did I just do? I guess they made the right decision by not having a mini game, and I guess the idea of having a sale between December 20th and January 3rd makes sense because it catches people who want to buy games for friends or their kids before Christmas happens, and it catches people who get money during Christmas to buy games. It would be nice, honestly, if a lot of companies would just take a step back and say, hey, we're gonna do our Black Friday sale and then that's it, and we're gonna not have you try and spend your money during the last 3 months of the year like every other company. It's so ridiculous that just so many different things have sales, and this would be the time to buy things, and then you have to spend the remaining 9 months of a year paying off credit card debts or saving up your money just because nothing is actually at a good discount for any of those other times, with the rare exception of maybe a mattress on Labor Day. Video games in particular are in a good position going forward to be a year-round event, and a summer sales, the Steam Summer Sale, for example, might be a better deal. So we need to vote on the Steam Awards, and then we're going to be actually shopping at games, which we haven't started this. This is slowly bobbing up and down. Now, I made a nominees video specifically, and I was picking things that I thought would win. In previous years, I had picked things that I was that I wanted to win, or things that I had actually played. This year, I really haven't played any new games. I've just been playing old retrospectives of games. So, I decided to just try to vote for the winners. Not that it seems like that would matter. So the Steam voting awards voting, the Steam community has spoken, and we are proud to announce the finalists for the Steam Awards 2018. The categories they gave us kind of sucked. We'll see that. So what you were voting for in 2018 weren't really good categories, but we still need your help in choosing the winners. Please vote below in each of the 8 characters and share your top Steam games and share your top Steam games and developers from 2018. You can also obtain a card for this year's set of winter sale trading cards for each vote you cast. So we're gonna get 8 cards. So let's just start here. Game of the year. I guess you don't need to do that. We've got a video, the nominees for Game of the Year. The Game of the Year, maybe it was its impressive gameplay, or its gripping story, or its well-crafted characters, immaculate design, or addictive multiplayer. For whatever reason, the winner of the 2018's Game of the Year award is an instant classic. So, I think Monster Hunter World was the one that I probably picked as Game of the Year, but honestly, I was hoping Dragon Quest would have taken that victory. I mean, you could just play for PUBG, but did PUBG really come and fizzle out in 2018? I don't think that's worth it. Hitman 2, I don't know if it's that great to be Game of the Year. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I have no idea about Kingdom Come Deliverance, so Monster Hunter World would be my pick. I think I nominated a lot of the more Japanese games in particular just because I wanted to try to keep it balanced. It really should be like a 50-50. There should be, instead of Kingdom Come Deliverance, I would have put Dragon Quest. And honestly, if Fortnite was on Steam, Fortnite should win, not PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. These other ones are kind of a random pick. They're alright, they're good choices, but you kind of need more than 5. Alright, so we voted one time and we earned 1 trading card. And you can change your vote if you want to. That wouldn't get you any more trading cards, I imagine. Next, Game of the Year is a standard category, so there's no real complaint there. But this is ridiculous. VR Game of the Year. VR is the Wild West of game designs. It's the lawless land of emerging standards where pretty much anything goes. The winner is the award is not only hugely fun, but helps chart a course for the future of the medium. The ridiculousness of having to think about the Steam's description of VR Game of the Year makes it even more difficult, because maybe you just want to give something VR Game of the Year, but it doesn't follow this description at all. So honestly, I don't feel like any of the VR games are that good that they deserve to be VR Game of the Year. Like, are you really going to give it to yet another re-release of Skyrim that is just going to be as buggy and the same old? Are you going to give it to the VR version of Fallout 4, which still is just Fallout 4 that's not that interesting? Are you going to give it to a game called VR Chat that's not even seemingly a game? Like, you didn't need to change the definition to VR Application of the Year. And you have like 2 Bethesda things here for no reason. Super Hot VR might be interesting, but like, I don't have VR. I have no intention of owning a VR headset at this point. So I'm just kind of, if I was to vote for this, it'd be for really no reason at all. It's just random. All these votes are pretty random. Why this is out of line, I don't know. But the only thing I can really come down to is Beat Saber. I know has been talked about a lot, and I've seen a lot of streamers doing Beat Saber videos. So I think Beat Saber is the VR Game of the Year. But I completely disagree with the idea of that being a category, when you'll soon see that there aren't categories that make a lot more sense, like Adventure Game of the Year, or action game of the year, or fighting game of the year, or sports game of the year. Like, there's some basic generic tags in Steam for different types of games. RPG of the year. All of those could have been categories. We could have had a lot more categories to vote for a lot more games, which would help the Steam awards feel like a bigger thing and a more important thing. The fact that only like 6 games are going to win is ridiculous. It's not like there's a presentation or show that announces these things, so you could go on for 30 to 60 to even 100 games and give 100 different games on Steam different awards, and it could feel very natural and very legitimate. Next we have the 2018 Labor of Love category. This game has been out for a while. The team is well past the first unveiling of a creative baby, but being good parents they are, the devs continue to nurture and support their creations. This game, to this day, still getting new content after all these years. So, like, that's a confusing title for that. Like, really, this should be Best Ongoing Support, not Labor of Love. Labor of Love, to me, in my mind, means it's some indie developer, a team of less than 5 people working on a game for a long time and then finally getting it to release. It doesn't mean that they then have to support it and continuously add content. And when I think of the phrase Labor of Love, I would give it immediately to Stardew Valley over any of these others. But Best Ongoing Support, I think I still would give it to Stardew Valley. I'm not a big fan of Dota, and I don't know a lot about it, so if a Valve game, like, getting ongoing support, okay, it probably does. I've heard that Path of Exile is good, unless I'm thinking of a different game, because there's several games that get confused in my head with similar names. I think Path of Exile is like the new Diablo replacement since the announcement of Diablo Immortal. No Man's Sky that train has long since left the station. Even if it is better now, which I'll fully guess that it is, there's no reason to reward No Man's Sky for still being below average, in my opinion. And GTA 5. I can't really say that GTA 5 is getting ongoing support out of any kind of love. It's getting continued support because of microtransactions and because Rockstar is getting a ton of money out of it. Same could be said for Dota too. Also, it continues to get support because it has to get support to keep the money flowing. So Stardew Valley is a clear winner there. And I don't even like Stardew Valley. Let's just be obvious here. I tried to play it. It was just not a game for me. I don't think farming games are for me. So I know lots of people support it. A lot of people liked it. I wasn't one of them, but I still think of Labor of Loves and continuing support that Stardew Valley deserves it. Next we have Best Developer, which is almost the equivalent in my mind of asking who is the best executioner, because let's face it, almost every single developer sucks in some way or other these days. They're greedy, they're trying to throw tons of microtransactions in the game. We really, particularly in 2018, have not had any kind of developer support their product well, give us a good, complete, finished product, and just and not done something otherwise shady. It's been a terrible year, and it's probably only going to get worse every year as far as developers. Yeah, and none of these developers are indie developers. They're way big time AAA developers. Honestly, if I was going to try to think of a best developer, I would probably start looking in indie places. I don't know, what would we go with? Like, maybe, well, Super Meat Boy Forever is in development. Maybe you say he's the best developer, or like it would be very small games and very small developers, games that people have never heard of. Like maybe you go to the developer who made The Return of Obra Dinn, and you say he's best developer. But see, then that would be a weird category to have best developers and have no AAA developer included, because they all eliminate themselves. Anyways, the description, whether it was by listening to their fans, which almost nobody did in 2018, creating something genuinely unexpected, which most AAA developers can't really create anything genuinely unexpected because it's hype trained and talked about so much. So you could surprise somebody on that teaser trailer the first time, but by 3 or 4 years later, when the game actually comes out, it's totally expected. Or just delivering on the promise of a truly great game. The studio absolutely crushed it in 2018. So you have CD Projekt Red. Oops, which this is going to actually just bring us here. Which The Witcher Wild Hunt came out in 2015. So the only thing that they released really was Thronebreaker on Steam in 2018, which is like a slight modification on Gwent. You have Ubisoft, which I think made Assassin's Creed, Odyssey, which yeah, it's just more Assassin's Creed Origin. You have Bethesda, which there's no way in the world I'm gonna give Bethesda a vote there for the Fallout 76 and their garbage. You have Rockstar Games, and nobody should vote for them for Red Dead Redemption and their online microtransaction garbage. Digital Extremes Limited, what did they make? Warframe and Survived By, and then like some older games. Well, Warframe is from 2013, so the only thing you could possibly give them the award for is Survived By. This is kind of ridiculous. Like, why are these even in contention? Square Enix, with their kind of terrible release of Final Fantasy 15, no. Capcom with kind of nothing. Well, let's see if we can think about Capcom, because they might win this, as sad as that is. You have the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle, which is rated very positively. It's just old games. You have Mega Man 11, which rated very positively, and you have Monster Hunter World, which is mixed on PC because I think of performance issues. And then the X-Men Legacy Collection, Street Fighter, Devil May Cry Collection. Yeah, Capcom might actually deserve to win. Let's see, we could look at Square Enix too and just see, like, how are people even supposed to know what these developers made? Just Cause 4, The Quiet Man was total garbage. Life is Strange is still episodically coming out. Tales of the Wedding Rings VR, haven't even heard of. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was rated mostly positive, but people weren't super happy with it. And then Dragon Quest is very positive. So do you just give it to Dragon Quest? Forgotten Anne came and was forgotten. Pun intended. It looks like they released a decent amount of things. Final Fantasy 15 Windows Editions rated pretty well. Chrono Trigger mostly positive. Secret of Mana mixed. So I guess Square Enix might have an argument because they just released more. But this is also the year that the developer who very potentially was the reason that Final Fantasy 15 had problems left the company, but Square Enix has always been accused of being micromanaging. So next we have Paradox Interactive. Again, don't know what they've released. Battletech, Surviving Mars, Knights of Pen and Paper Free Edition, Necropolis Brutal Edition. Let's see, actually, how many of these came out in 2018? Yeah, Knights of Pen and Paper Free Edition. Like, so 3 games there, one being Battletech. Like, that game, that doesn't, it shouldn't really even be up for contention. Like, they seem to really have just randomly picked 8 companies in this case, and this was not something that people voted on, I don't believe. Like, I can't see why people would have voted Paradox Interactive on this list. So maybe it was something people randomly voted on, and that's where the weirdness is coming from, or maybe it was they asked companies who they wanted to, whether they wanted to be in contention, and only 8 responded, or maybe Steam just picked random things. So for Bandai Namco's got a lot of the anime tie-in games, but those tend to not be amazingly great. So I don't think you could give Bandai Namco Best Developer for Sword Art Online Lost Song. 1111 Memories Retold is, I think, a World War I or World War II game. My Hero's One's Justice, not really. Soul Calibur, seems like people are enjoying Soul Calibur. New Gundam Breakers, unfortunately, is mixed, and I really wanted that to be successful. Black Cove or Quartet Knight. Naruto the Boruto, Shinobi Striker, another Sword Art Online game. Dark Souls Remastered. I don't think people really like Dark Souls Remastered much. Little Witch Academia Chamber of Time. That was a pretty mediocre kids game based off the Netflix anime series. And is this going to even load the next page? Whenever these sales happen, things don't want to work. See if we can trigger something here. Nope. So I guess maybe you could go Bandai Namco, but I don't think so. I think if you're going for a Japanese company, you probably give it to Square Enix or Capcom before you do Bandai Namco. And then Clay, I honestly think that they've only made like one thing. They remastered Mark of the Ninja, but is that a good reason to be the best developer of years because you re-released the game? Oxygen not included. I don't think I liked those styles of games, and that was 2017. So yeah, how can you say Clay is the best game for 2018 when they released a remaster and that was all that they released? So none of these for 2018, which you have to limit yourself to that, otherwise you're just going to give best developer to your favorite developer always. Like, do you give it to Rockstar Games for Red Dead Redemption 2 even though there's microtransactions in it and a bunch of garbage? Or do you stand on principles? Like, I think it falls down to Square Enix and Capcom, and I think Capcom may take it. So let's go back and see if we can get Square Enix to load up. It's taking forever. Yeah. I would say, honestly though, let's go for a bit more variety here and say let's pick Square Enix. This is ridiculous to give Square Enix Best Developer of the Year, but they gave a little bit of everything to everybody. They gave you Just Cause if you're more of a Western gamer who just wants to run around an open sandbox. They gave you The Quiet Man if you're apparently in love with terrible full motion video games that suck. If you hate bad games, if you love to play terrible games, mostly negatively reviewed, you've got The Quiet Man. They give you Life is Strange. If you are into Telltale games and kind of hyper progressive ideas, so that's there for you. Tales for the Wedding Rings VR looks like it's a Korean manga, as I think they pronounce it, in VR, which was crazy. I remember seeing this actually, that it's basically a manga in VR, so only people with VR could see it. They gave Tomb Raider to your average fan of first-person shooting, bow hunting, and a little puzzle platforming, which I will play Shadow of the Tomb Raider eventually, but I'm not hyper interested in it right now. Boundless for anybody who's interested in a Minecraft clone. Dragon Quest 11, Echoes of the Elusive Age. That is probably the best JRPG to come out this year. It's probably the best JRPG series to play. They gave everyone a free prequel of Life is Strange 2 in the form of The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit. They gave Forgotten Anne to people who want to play puzzle platformers, and it just goes on. Octahedron, a Final Fantasy XIV Resolution Pack, and Final Fantasy XV Feared Vex Sedona, Chrono Trigger, and Secret of Mana for old school players. They didn't always deliver with quality, but they did give a lot. So I guess Square Enix deserves it. Like, they tried their little heart out at the very least, whereas a lot of these developers didn't even really put out anything worth consideration. Next we have Best Environment. I don't know why they put Best Developer in the middle there. They should have put it at the end. All those chatty cutscenes, all those reminders that they need a health pack again. Let's face it, characters are overrated. As this winter illustrates, sometimes breathtaking scenery tells a better story than 1,000 big-mouthed heroes. So we could go with Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which didn't really come out in 2018. I don't even think Blood and Wine came out in 2018. Subnautica, which, let's see, yeah, release day May 18, 2015, so it shouldn't be included. Subnautica came out in 2018. Tomb Raider came out in 2018. Far Cry 5 came out in 2018. And Dark Souls 3 came out in 2016. So it's weird how these votes are going. It's basically what's your opinion of these games that may not have come out this year. I'm gonna go with Subnautica quickly. Just like that. And next we have Better with Friends. There are just some games out there that just aren't the same when you play by yourself. Maybe you need to have a friend to watch your back. Maybe you need to have a friend that can also that you can stab in their back. Either way, mirth is always awaiting those who gather their friends to play in these games. And inherently, as a YouTuber who pre-records a lot of footage, there's a lot of games that have been made and still get made where you really cannot enjoy them or play them without having a team of 4 friends who are always available and willing to play with you, which is just not something that is reasonable, particularly for as much as I play video games and for the weird times I play on it. Your options are Payday 2, that's pretty much a joke. I think this company is going into bankruptcy. Dead by Daylight, no. Rainbow Six Siege, I think that's going to win. Counter-Strike Global Offensive or Overcooked 2. I've heard a lot of people had fun with Overcooked 2. I haven't played any of these games, so I'll give it to Overcooked 2. And we should have 2 more. Next you have Best Alternate History. Those who cannot remember the past are doomed to repeat it. Those who remember it just fine but prefer to reinvent it are doomed to get this award for 2018's Tinkering with the History books. So Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, which was a came out in 2017. I may give it to that. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which came out in 2018. Iron Hearts 4, Civ 6, and Fallout 4. Fallout 4 doesn't deserve it. I don't think I could give it to Iron Hearts. I don't think I can give it to Civ. So it really just boils down to, do I want to give it to Wolfenstein 2, or do I want to give it to Assassin's Creed Odyssey? And I don't feel like there's even really much of a competition there, because all Assassin's Creed Odyssey feels like it does, as somebody who hasn't played it, is take some old Greek myths and make some missions around it. It doesn't seem like it drastically reinvents the entire timeline of the world, whereas Wolfenstein is totally about reinventing the entire timeline, and everything is different. So even though it didn't come out in 2018, I'll put it there. I mean, you really have to bend over backwards just to find things. It would have been probably better by far if Steam had nominated a lot of the games, or at the very least eliminated games that didn't come out in 2018, so that people had to really think about what they were choosing. Otherwise, this is just constantly going to be an overall popularity contest. Next, we have most fun with a machine, whether it's a car, truck, robot, or other mechanized contraption. The winner of this award fired on all cylinders. Engineering an unforgettable gameplay experience made possible by machines. So our options are Euro Truck Simulator 2, no, I wouldn't vote on that. Rocket League, which came out in 2015, although Rocket League has gotten continuing support because it has like microtransactions and stuff in it, so that would be a game that justifies that. Nier Automata, which came out in 2017, but I think is probably going to win this, even though, let's face it, it's still not quite running the right way. It never got that patch that, as far as I hear, it never got the patch that they promised to release, and they're going to come out with like a new Game of the Year edition, so one can only hope that the PC Game of the Year edition includes a patch to fix the performance for Nier Automata. It's still a very playable game, but it might require you to jump through some hoops to fix some things. Factorio is too niche, not cliche, but niche a game. I don't think a lot of people would play it. Space Engineers, it was popular for like a brief second in 2018, and that's all I can really even say about it. So yeah, it comes down to, do you give it to the 2015 game Rocket League or the 2017 game Nier Automata? I'm leaning towards trying to again support the Japanese companies, because honestly they need it on Steam. A lot of Japanese companies in general seem to be under some extra scrutiny as far as trying to get their games released, and then frequently asked questions come down to some basic stuff. The main thing on the sale here: winners get a trophy. All winners will be announced in early February. You can vote until January 3rd, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. For each category you vote in, you get a Steam Awards trading card. What can I do with the Steam Awards trading card? If you collect a full set, you can craft these cards into a Steam Awards badge. This badge and each individual level earns you Steam XP. The amount of XP is almost always 100 XP, though, so it's not like level 2 gives you twice as much as level 1 does. What can I get with? What are all the ways I can get more trading cards? You get them as a reward for purchasing games on Steam, usually in increments of $10, and the checkout will tell you that. Crafting game badges will give you more trading cards, so now is the time to craft any badges of other games if you're going to play this game, which is an OCD insane game of microtransactions. Like, usually when there's a sale, I spend like $30 at least just buying trading cards for no reason other than I am totally insane. And I buy and trade for cards, mostly buying and making badges, which gives me more cards, which then lets me make more badges, which gives me more cards in an infinite loop. Also, we can browse the discovery queue, and you can trade cards with friends, or you can purchase them in the community market. So we voted, and scroll way back up here. If I come back over to the badges, you can see I have 5 of 8 cards. And each card is just a simplistic picture of each of the awards. And somehow I ended up with 3 of the best developer and 2 of most fun with the machines, which means had they equally distributed these cards, which they never do, they make some of them a lot more rare than the others, I could have crafted a badge right now. So that's voting. What else do we have to do? You look here. I think, particularly since I've made a lot of effort to clean up my wishlist, games like My Time and Porsche have been moved to the follow list. And so you can see this has a user tag of early access, and that's why this game is not on the wish list, but is actually on the follow list. So that changes for me how a lot of this is going to look. And this, I do need to do like a follow list cleanup. But right now what I'm looking for is the exploration queue. So let's quickly go through all of this. First person shooter multiplayer only game. If it's multiplayer only, I'm not going to ever play it. PUBG is mixed. For me, it's also a multiplayer game, so I'm not going to play it. Kinshi is an RPG open world survival game. Let's see. It's rated very positively. Is it an early access? No. Interesting. And it's single player only, which is weird. I think I looked at these games because I look at basically every game that comes out on Steam every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when I'm streaming Hearthstone and talking about video game news. So I think I looked at this game and the graphics just did not look amazingly good. And this feels a lot like Conan Exiles if you didn't have even as much polish as Conan Exiles. So yeah, I skipped this, and I still would skip this. Here we have Rust. I don't know why it wanted to do an age check here. Rust is a multiplayer game, so they are literally just throwing the same games towards me that I've probably rejected before. And most of these are like top tier AAA developer games, or at least single A or double A developer games. Like, do I want to play Atom RPG, which is selling itself as a Wasteland, Fallout, Deus Ex, Baldur's Gate game? Not really, because by the time I got around to playing this, I would have had to play Fallout 1 and 2, which I already own. I think I own Wasteland, I definitely own Deus Ex 1, I may own Baldur's Gate. So like every single game listed here I already own and haven't gotten around to playing, because they're all a pretty big time commitment. So why play Atom RPG until I've become a hyper fan of that style of game. Monster Hunter World. Let's see, why was this not on my wish list? Was it because it had De Nouveau in it? I don't know. It must have changed their opinion. Like, it was mixed overall. 64% positive and 53,541 reviews of verified owners. Whereas now it's very positive. So I probably, in the Steam wishlist cleanup, or at some point, just never felt like it deserved to be played unless the PC version is doing well. It seems like maybe they've fixed their problems. And that certainly happens a lot. This one, English language is not supported, so even though this might look like a decent hack and slash Chinese game, yeah, simplified Chinese, I could never play it. And Chinese games are always a little iffy because there's so many bad Chinese games, cheap Chinese knockoffs of games that get made. They just really haven't gotten to the point where the entire huge landmass of people in China have realized, look, video games are at a certain level and you have to bring your product up to that level to sell it in a competitive market. China itself has been behind the Great Firewall and censorship, and it still is, so they really haven't had to compete against a lot of the outside of China video games that have existed. Football Manager, I'm not going to be playing a Football Manager or Soccer Manager game in 2019. Maybe at some point I would play one, but right now I wouldn't. I imagine these suggestions are completely different for different people. Dusk is overwhelmingly positive, but it is really just a modern version of like Doom, and I would prefer to play the Doom reboot personally than play something that looks like Doom 3D that's just more of a modern, more levels, more of a take on it. I'm not that into 3D first-person shooting and what this is offering. I don't have that level of nostalgia that I think you would need to play a game like this. A lot of games on Steam certainly try to play on nostalgia, and that only works so far and so well. Like, next we have Bladed Fury, which looks interesting. Certainly. Can we skip forward and not have to watch the entire collection of... So it looks like it might be a beat-em-up hack and slash side scroller. With kind of a unique Chinese art style. Yeah, I think this looks good. This one can be added to the wish list. Of course, them having you go through these games in your discovery queue is helpful if you are somebody who wants to own a lot of games, and Steam in itself is very helpful. Some of the competitors like the Epic Store that are trying to launch fail to really grasp just the vast amount of games that they would have to really be a competitor to people who already own hundreds and hundreds of games on Steam. I'm not into sports. Doesn't seem like this is particularly that good anyways. I don't think the 2K series in sports games have been good for decades, if ever. So this is an easy one to skip. I guess if you're not into shopping and you just want to play 3 or 4 games on PC, you could go to pretty much any storefront that has those 3 or 4 games. But I think even over the course of 4 or 5 years of doing that, you're gonna run into some problems if you put everything in, say, EA Origin Store, or Uplay Store, or the Epic Store, because eventually you're going to end up having to install 5 or 6 different storefronts to get the games you actually want. In fact, this exclusivity and fragmentation is continuously becoming an obvious problem, because even the end of the Telltale's The Walking Dead has just been announced that it's going to be exclusive to the Epic Store somehow, even though that was sold on Steam. So maybe a timed exclusive or what. So first, people who wanted to finish the Telltale Walking Dead series were at risk of not having the game finished because Telltale went out of business. Now you're at risk of not being able to finish the game because you didn't jump onto the Epic Store, which literally didn't exist when Telltale went out of business. Excuse me while I drink some water. This game, X Foundations, it seems like some space series. Trade, fight, build, and think carefully. The thing about space series is they don't ever really interest me. This is X4. It's a 4X game. Like I'm gonna be generous and put this on the fall list and come back and look at it, but there's a decent chance that I would just not have interest in playing these 4X games. So that's one discovery queue down. There's 2 more you have to do. Let's just go through it. This is a good example of like what the process is as far as adding games to my wish list, and certainly if you watch the videos, which are very long, so if you've got free time you can watch them from the beginning of the Steam wishlist cleanup, you can see the process of removing a lot of things. What I'm particularly looking for here, Jurassic World Evolution is a park management game, so I'm not interested in that, is if I see any visual novels of any sort, or any anime games with anime girls, moe characters, or even anime boys in the offerings, or if the discovery queue is really going to stick to major AAA, AA games of a Western style. So far I've seen pretty much all Western games except for the Chinese game, and there's a big difference between the Japanese game and the Chinese game and the Korean game and any of the other Asian country games. I already own Skyrim. I don't see a reason why I'd want Skyrim VR. Pathfinder Kingmaker is an RPG. They put too many videos here, and then this is a Deep Silver game. It kind of looks like a Diablo clone. I could put it on the fall list. I'm gonna be a little bit more flippant here and try to speed up the process, and I'll look at it in the fall list issues. Neo Complete Edition. I think I probably would want to play this at some point, so I don't mind adding this to the wish list. It's not a super high priority. I don't think there's going to be a Neo 2 that comes out anytime soon. It's kind of a little too difficult style of game for me, so like when it's tagged difficult, that can be frustrating and take a lot of time. I do like racing games, and Codemasters has made some good ones and some bad ones. So F1 2018, if any of these video images would want to load, is a consideration, I suppose, but Honestly, I don't think I want to play F1 games is the problem. I want to be on just a track. I want something closer to the dirt series, where sometimes you're on a snow track, sometimes you're on a dirt track, sometimes some different things are happening. Sometimes you're supposed to you do tricks, sometimes you do a destruction derby, things like that. Next we have Mega Aquarium, which would be a management simulation game. I do have this growing dislike for the idea of running a job or doing somebody's job in a video game. It just doesn't seem particularly interesting. This doesn't look terrible, frankly, but I don't know why I would pick this over any other game. Like, this is just Roller Coaster Tycoon with aquariums, and maybe that is enough to get it to the wish list, come to think of it. Next we have a multiplayer only game, so I can skip that. Next we have a farming game. Again, don't want to farm. This looks really nice, farm together, but it's mostly focused on multiplayer. And yeah, if I don't like Stardew Valley, I'm not gonna like this game. Next we have Creative Destruction, which is a first-person shooter battle royale clone, Fortnite clone basically. No interest there. And here we have a rhythm game that looks Japanese, but it's rated mostly negative. Now personally, I don't have any rhythm, so I can't play most rhythm games. It's single player only. I'd almost want to spend the extra time if I wasn't trying to rush through this to see why it's 38% positive, which is really, really low. So, in case you haven't heard me whining about it, which I've, for the past month or so, really had to do, some, either Steam themselves or some rogue employee in Steam, possibly from the Campo Santo branch of employees, has decided that any visual novel or any Japanese game with an anime girl that happens to be in a school outfit, whether they've decided that means that they are of underage, which their cartoons, they can't literally be underage. There's no problem there. And they've pretty much also have started claiming that because they're based in Washington State in the United States, that there's some kind of law in Washington State that they're interpreting to say any underage depiction can be construed as exploiting children. Like, again, their cartoons are not children. And so any game, whether it has any romance or sex content in it at all, is now under this extreme censorship and just not being allowed to be sold on Steam. The problem here is Steam said they were not going to be tastemakers and they weren't going to ban this. They came out and specifically said this earlier this year, and so now they're going back on their word. If they had made an official announcement that changed their mind and that they were going to do this, then that would have just been up to consumers at that point to say whether they wanted to support Steam. And honestly, if you're really concerned about it, maybe you don't buy anything during the Steam sale. And it's not as much being applied fairly at all, because if it is a Western animation style of a character that might look like they're 17, 16, 15 years old, it's getting through just fine, regardless of how terrible the game is. It's only when it is a Japanese developer and publisher putting out a game that it's getting this extra scrutiny. Which, I mean, that's what anime culture has been and Japanese culture has been, is that they all had a really good time in high school, and thus they set a lot of their stories nostalgically in the high school time. Um, so now it's starting to look like no Japanese games, and I'm getting way off topic here, are getting approved. This one seems like it has been approved, but it's also a music game that nobody likes. And also, it doesn't seem to have any characters in school outfits. So you can have the high fantasy characters. Here's a great example. You can have a high fantasy angel character in what is close to lingerie outfits. They can be drawn in basically any style that you can interpret to be basically any age, but if they're in a school outfit, they're using that as an excuse. And don't worry, this is definitely a slippery slope, where as soon as they get away with it long enough, they're going to expand their reasons to block more and more of the Japanese games, particularly the visual novels, the dating games, the romance games, and the sex games. Don't worry, that this is going to eventually lead to what many people in the wrong way of thinking have been trying to push Steam to do, which is to fully censor all of their content to only allow games that basically the mainstream video game media approves of. And yeah, a lot of that sounds like conspiracy theory, but it kind of is what's going on. Moving forward, we have Graveyard Keeper, which is kind of like Stardew Valley again. And sorry, I just had such a negative reaction to Stardew Valley and its gameplay loop that anytime I see something like it, I'm like, well, if I didn't like the best one, which I will fully admit that Stardew Valley is probably the best Harvest Moon game out there since Harvest Moon. If I didn't like that, then I probably am not going to like anything else. Here we have a THQ Nordic, which we were inevitably going to see a THQ Nordic games because they've bought so many freaking companies and they're republishing a ton of games. Unfortunately, they really had their opportunity for me with Darksiders 3. And my fear was kind of confirmed that they were going to not put enough money and time and effort into making Darksiders 3 be a good game. Instead, they were going to just try to go for quantity over quality and publish a lot of terrible games. Like, they had released a Black Mirror remaster that was terrible slightly before Darksiders 3, but I figured, yeah, that was just a one of standalone things. But then Darksiders 3 comes out and it's not super well received, and at that point I just don't feel like I can trust THQ Nordic to put out quality products. So you have this game called Elix. It's rated very positively and mostly positively. It's tagged similar to Darksiders 3 because it's THQ Nordic, I think, more than anything else. An open world RPG. A game like this, the question I guess would come down to, would this really be a good replacement for something like Mass Effect? Because Mass Effect has gone off the rails too. Or is it better to just play Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, which has a lot better name recognition, than play Elix? And I guess it comes down to price too. Right now at $20 it's probably not worth it, but I'll throw this on the wish list. But I'm being rather generous, quite frankly. Like, it probably shouldn't be on the wish list. And so that gets us 2, and then we have to do yet another queue. This is a lot of time. A lot of time that you're spending looking at games that you weren't even considering purchasing. This is your standard trickery that any sale and any kind of store tries to pull off, is they get you in the door with a sale, and instead of being able to run to the shelf where the item that you actually had planned on purchasing is, you have to walk through many aisles of many ads looking at other things. So Maple's Story 2. I don't think Maple's Story 2 or the Maple Story is a bad game, but it is an MMO with in-app purchases, free-to-play games. So if you wanted to try it out, you could do it now. I'm just not into covering games that are free-to-play in any way, because as a video game critic, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. If you want to try the game, try it out yourself. I only need to criticize games that are usually for sale. I would also say Maple Story has this chibi character animation, as it's called, for a lot of its stuff, and that's not super appealing visually to me. So I'm not really into the chibi characters. Chibi characters work well as a cutaway gag sometimes, or you could have one chibi character in an anime or manga series, and I'm fine with that. But if it's the entirety of everyone, then that only really makes sense in a few instances where it's like a kid-friendly type game, and I doubt Maple Story is particularly kid-friendly. Excuse me, had to drink some more water. We have Star Control Origins, which is another fly around space games. I think Star Control might have been the company that was getting sued or suing another company for the name of Star Control. There definitely was some lawsuits going around from Stardock, and this was a mixed game that has moved to a mostly positive game. So I'll put this on the fall list, but again, it's a 4X game. I do kind of like the animation style a little bit on that cutscene, but looking at some of these screenshots, if they would load, doesn't particularly look like a super appealing game. It seems a little Minecrafty, a little No Man's Sky-ish. I'll put it on the fall list though, and let's move forward. Here we go. It's sexual content and nudity. So at least we got one. This one's rated very positively. Seed of the Dead. Hopefully there's nothing objectionable in the videos and such. I've always felt like the storefronts, ever since they allowed uncensored games, which is what they said they were going to do, I always felt like it should be moderately family friendly. You should still have to click for mature and adult games if you're not logged in, but the storefront itself should censor things even if the game is uncensored. And as a streamer who has to stream on YouTube, I kind of would prefer to see. Now this is a schoolgirl outfit, the standard Navy Japanese adapted schoolgirl outfits, and you can just see in this instance where the characters really don't even fit in with the world that the zombies are in the background. So this is one of those games where they've asset flipped some stuff and pre-bought some zombie assets, pre-bought some environments, and then they've possibly pre-bought these anime characters too. This is probably not that good of a game. It's probably an asset flip game. Oddly, it seems like games like this that do have tag sexual content and nudity tend to be approved if they are bad quality compared to good quality. I don't know if this is some intentional poisoning of the well. But yeah, this is a standard Japanese adopted a Navy style outfit and for their schools. So, but the colors are for different schools and often made up, and so there's no real indication that this is a junior school outfit or based off that, or a high school outfit, or even a college outfit. And hey, Japanese people are into cosplay, so you could easily be 35 or older and still wearing a schoolgirl outfit. The only curator to watch is, in my opinion, is the cut content police. Censored content R18 scenes are censored by mosaics. According to user comments, devs are not planning to release a patch. Patch 1 existed, but it has since been removed. So, as a YouTube content creator who would have to censor out covering some of these games, and I'm still trying to figure out ways in which that would be done, it'd be helpful if games came out uncensored by default and then there was a patch to mosaic and censor things. There is also some weirdness about Japanese games. This, I assume, is a Japanese game because it has full audio Japanese, because of the fact that in Japan things can't be unmosaiced or uncensored. So a lot of Japanese games were never uncut, uncensored, and so it's in a weird like catch-22 cycle. And then here we have some random crazy descriptions of the mature content, which they really need to work on what people can put in here as the description, because it kind of can just be everything and anything. Put this on the follow list. I'm still trying to figure out if and when I could ever cover these types of games, or how I'd cover them. But also I don't want to admit that they ignore the fact that they exist. Wow, apparently they decided to go on a theme. We have Crush Crush as another nudity sexual content game. Again, let's see. Apparently this is like a, I think, match 3 free-to-play game. I don't think there's too much here. There's a 18+ DLC to uncensor. I don't agree with that idea at all, of having to pay to uncensor a game. But yeah, I'm fairly certain that this is... No, it's not even a match 3 game. It's a click-to-wait game. It's probably not worth your time being free to play, but if you wanted to try it, you could do it. And then we're back to Western games like Party Hard 2, which is a game completely designed around murdering people as a violent simulation top-down game. There wasn't anything here that looked interesting because the camera is so zoomed out, and it just does not really look like this is worth really playing. It's a lot... It reminds me of that game Hatred, which got a lot of controversy around it, and then in reality, even though it was hyper violent, it wasn't really worth playing. I think that's the same case here, is that you're gonna have to look at these pixel graphics and play this top-down, what looks like a top-down simulation game. That, yeah, just not catching my attention. Let's see, Equinox, overwhelmingly positive, casual sandbox relaxing game. This is one where you grow your environment, and you try to grow an entire habitat. I think I looked at this and this just didn't look like, it doesn't look enough like a game to me. I saw a report of a recent survey that said 68% of all video games have some level of violence. Now, the amount of violence that is depicted is random, certainly, because like Lego games have a level of violence because you can punch characters, but that's hardly anywhere as violent as, say, a Mortal Kombat game where you're punching through people and getting an x-ray of their chest crunching and organs shifting and such. And 68% of all video games is an incredibly low number in my mind, because it was 90% of all movies. And surprisingly, the TV numbers were low, but I think that's just because there's so many sports shows, which I guess technically sports aren't depictions of violence, unless it's like boxing. And I guess there's a lot of game shows and such that wouldn't depict violence, and situational comedies and things like that. But I would have said before I had heard that survey that it would have been much closer to 90% of all games have some form of depiction of violence. Now, next we have a game called Even Still, which again, sexual content, nudity, anime, RPG, not safe for work. So, this game, I don't think I've heard of this. Interesting. So, for time's sake, and just in case this decides to show something that's a little too risque, and again, these are fantasy characters, so they're not in schoolgirl outfits, so they were approved. Also, this came out in June before all of this started happening. I'm gonna put this on the fall list, and put this on the fall list, and put it on the wish list. And none of it wants to work. Well, whatever. So I'll have to remember this game and move forward from here. Generally speaking, RPGs I try to avoid because there's so many terrible RPGs and they take so long. So it'd be really hard to justify playing an adult RPG when there's things like Dragon Quest out there that would be better to spend your time on, or Final Fantasy. Next we have Gun Club VR. This is just a VR gun game, stand in one place and shoot. This doesn't look too terrible, honestly, but there is a constant flow of games that do stuff like this, where you stand in one place and shoot guns. This one actually has seemingly a lot of features, a lot of different guns, zombies, an environment creator. Like, this looks a lot better than most of them, so I'm gonna put this on the fall list. The thing here is it's a VR game, and VR games never leave the fall list because I'd never actually want to purchase them unless at some point VR headsets get cheap enough and it makes sense. Next we have Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. I guess at some point now I would want to play the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links game. There's definitely some weirdness with Yu-Gi-Oh! Games that they usually aren't. They don't run very well, and the PC port is pretty bad. It's a free-to-play game with a bunch of in-game options, and you really don't have to worry about the censored card and 3D models outside of Japan for Yu-Gi-Oh! Yes, they're censored a little bit, but it's not a big deal, I think, in this case. If you want to see a card game that is uncensored, Hearthstone actually has a mod that will add nudity to the game that was never there in the first place. It's straight up full nudity. I think this game is just a free-to-play game though, so that's why I've never gotten around to it. I don't think I jump from playing Hearthstone every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Even though I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards are probably a little bit more interesting to play with than Hearthstone cards. Next we have Pond, which looks like it's like a multiplayer game, first-person shooter. Feels like it's trying to do something like Battleborn or Overwatch, and I'm not even sure Overwatch has a growing and consistent player base as much as they would like. So yeah, Pond is free to play. It's mixed recently. It was positive to start off with. I imagine the player base is pretty low these days. But I have no idea, so. Next we have Slightly Heroes, which is a first-person shooter like Splatoon game that's in VR. I think I was going to keep this on the fall list. Since Nintendo games are almost certainly never coming to PC, You're always looking for a clone style game of the good Nintendo games. So a Splatoon clone is slightly interesting. You could also, if you're interested in the adult side of that, play Senran Kagura's Peach Beach Splash, which is basically a Splatoon clone. Or if you're on the kids side of it, you could play, I think it's called Crayola Scooter, which would probably be a little bit better, and I think doesn't require VR. So, but I'll put this on the fall list. One more game. Noticed here, we've seen some adult games suggested, but we really haven't seen too many terrible, extremely low effort asset flip games. Nothing that just is obvious that it's been terrible. We haven't seen anything that's like a Russian troll with Russian troll game with like Vladimir Putin's face on it. We haven't seen anything that is a slide puzzle game with just some probably stolen art assets. So Steam Discovery 2.0 has, in some ways, and I know they've been tweaking it recently, really fixed what gets recommended to you, and you really don't seem to see, or at least I don't seem to see, terrible and awful games. Yeah, I have to dig really, really deep. The only reason I do know that even the terrible, very low effort troll games exist on Steam is because I'm looking at every single game that comes out, but they never get promoted. So if you're thinking you can make a game and pay the $100 on Steam Direct and get it on Steam, yes you can, but honestly you probably won't make back that $100. This game, Sword with the Sauce, is a super hot style clone without the super hot time manipulation mechanic, and it just doesn't have that visual polish you would want to see. It's lacking in the number of polygons I imagine you would want. So even though this is rated very positively, it's not catching my attention. And I hate that Steam allows people to put their name here as something different than here. So this is labeling it as an alpha, but not tagging it as early access. So, like, some sort of bait and switch going on there. I could start another queue, but there's no reason. You can only get 3 trading cards in one day. So that puts me at the maximum amount of trading cards I'm going to get in today, and they conveniently figured a way to make sure you never get that 8th thing. In fact, I'm fairly certain it is programmed so you can never actually get a full set until you've spent like a considerable amount of money. Also, there are foil badges versions, so there's like shiny versions of all these cards that are extremely rare that you could get at random. If you do get some of them, my recommendation is sell it quickly. During these sales, I would say your best bet is to buy cards early at the beginning of the sale and sell cards late at the end of the sale if you can sell cards. Sometimes there's a cooldown period and you can't sell them because the prices shift pretty drastically, and that's the strategy I've been doing. But yeah, if you see a foil badge card, sell it for a high price. Somebody will buy it. Look at like the price on the market that it has sold the most for, and then add a penny to that. And so now we've done everything, all the rigmarole, looking at games we're not interested in, and it's been an hour and 30 minutes, and we haven't even looked at any game we're interested in at all, or that I'm interested in owning. It's pretty ridiculous, and you could scroll down more and see more of these ads if you wanted. There definitely is a long list. You could certainly shop under $10, shop under $5. You could certainly get that route going. But for me, since I've spent all that time curating, the way I want to do this is find my wish list, which is here. There it is. And don't click this button that's added by a thing. Now I have an extensive wish list that is sort of in a ranked order, and so by default, when I was doing the Steam wishlist cleanup, I was going through games A through Z, and then I was removing and re-adding games that were things I wanted to own. So most of these here at the very top, the first, I would say 1,000 of these games are top tier games. I really do want them. I really want to cover them on my YouTube channel. And again, if you want to support me, you could either support me through Patreon, or you could friend me on Steam and you could gift me one of these games, particularly right now while they're on sale, or a gift card, or just any game you'd like to see me cover. A few of these games are games I've already covered but I don't have on Steam, and I'm just trying to maintain a list of consistency here. And then some of these games like Galgun 2, or like, I'd love to own them, but I don't know how I'd specifically cover them on my channel, depending on how much censorship really needs to be done to satisfy YouTube. Like, YouTube is weird, certainly. And most of the games on my wish list are rated positive, at least. If they're rated mixed, there's probably a reason that I want to play. Some of these games are continuations of series, like I played the game Grow Home, I want to play the sequel Grow Up. Some of these are older games, Night Trap 25 years old, for example. Some of these are lesser known games like Pushover. But if I'm going to shop, just scrolling through all of this like this really is only just a refresher on the games that were the top priority. And that's where it's really going to get down to the point, is I'm going to have to, I have a budget in my mind of what I want to buy. I also have a couple of coupons that might or might not stack on discounts. But I want to make sure I get things that are good quality too. There's a couple different ways you can sort your wish list so that things go different ways. I might get some more Nancy Drew games. I do plan on playing all of the Nancy Drew series. I could sort my wish list by the lowest price, or I could sort it by the deepest discount. And either one of those sorts are going to give you slightly different responses. Here, like this is 99 cents for Gemini Heroes Reborn. That's a pretty good game. 99 cents is a great price for that. Whereas like Kitty Powers Matchmaker, a game I want to cover, but I don't think I'd want to pay $6.69 for it. Some of these games also never go on discount below a certain price. Some of these games very possibly have had their price raised so that they look like they're on a deep discount when they really aren't. So it's kind of important to have a general idea of what the value of an average video game is also. I'm still scrolling down to see where I get to the point where I'm hitting games that probably aren't at the top tier of the list. And those games are just kind of iffy games, and I'm not 100% sure about them. South Park Stick of Truth is kind of one of those iffy games where probably should own it and cover it, but I'm not sure I really want to spend the time on it. But all of these should be top tier. I wish there was a way to add like a break line, or more specifically, I wish there was a way in which I could break up the wish list into several different categories. It would be a lot more helpful for everybody involved if I had a wish list of action games, adventure games, adult games, anime games, like puzzle games. Because if somebody's not interested in those, or wants to use my wish list to shop for themselves, which might be slightly helpful, it's kind of impossible because you just have to rely on the one wish list, when most storefronts, if you go to like Amazon.com for example, you can make as many wish lists as you want. You can have a wish list of clothing, a wish list of movies, a wish list of electronics, a wish list of video games, and that makes a lot more sense. And there's just a definite lack of organization here, and I've been on a bit of an organization kick, because when I'm not playing video games I occasionally do Lego sets, and so I organized all the Lego sets into a database called My Brick Set on my cell phone. And then I was into DC comic books, and I have way too many DC New 52 comic trade paperbacks that I organized, but I'm not interested in them, so I organized them and then I boxed up all the comics and said, oh, I'll probably give all this away. But yeah, at least I wanted to know what I had before I got rid of it. Are we still not here? Here we have Negocier, the first completely uncensored game to be released on Steam. This came out October 19th, 2016 according to this. But I think the uncensored version came out earlier this year. It was a censored version before then. So it's been a long, weird journey with their, are they going to be free speech or are they going to be censored? Because that's really what it boils down to. Are you going to let an artist do what they want as long as it's labeled appropriately, or are you going to say your storefront is not for that type of content, so it's not allowed? And if Steam just said one way or other and stuck with what they said, there wouldn't have been a problem. Like, some people would have been upset, certainly, but it would have been a short flash in the pan instead of being a long drawn out issue. I think at this point, yeah, 911 operator is probably a good marker to say that the games below this point are things that I'm considering but not actually super interested in, as far as the rank sort, and that's at about halfway down the wish list. You can see it just goes on and on and on, because yeah, there's about 2,000 or 3,000 games here that I want to own and I want to cover, and I've covered a lot of them on my YouTube channel, but I certainly haven't covered that much. So the real way to shop, I think, would be to start with the discount and then move to the price. And you can limit yourself to filters, to just games, and then you can say exclude early access, pre-release, and VR only. And I think pretty much anything that's on my wish list would be Windows only, so I don't need to really click that. So there is like one game, I think, called Slay the Spire, that says it's going to raise its price by close to the end of the sale because it's coming out of early access. I kind of feel like that's the game developer giving you an ultimatum, though, to buy the game now. There have been some games that have done that, and it sucks, but if you like the game, Slay the Spire doesn't sound like it's a terrible game, maybe you just you just take it. Maybe you just accept it and get it on sale now. But frankly, eventually, 6 months, 2 years down the line, the game will go on a deeper discount than what they are saying it's going to be. But if you want to play Slay the Spire within the next few months, next 6 months, I'd say you probably should buy it before it goes out of early access. Excuse me, I'm drinking water again. So, let's see, we have 90% off. Generally speaking, I guess I'm looking for discounts on Steam that are at least 75% off, and it would be nice if they were at least 80% off. So, you're probably not going to get any better than $1.50 than that. You're probably not going to get any better than that. This game, Murdered Soul Suspect, $3 is a decent price, but it's still not as discounted as you might like it to be. That being said, you probably are going to have a slightly better experience on this than several other 99-cent games. Pathologic, World of Goo, I'm fairly certain I already covered that, but I just don't have it on this account. Some of these games, like Just Cause 2, I don't know if you really need to play the entirety of the Just Cause series. I think there might be some reason to play the Kane and Lynch series, and 99 cents makes some decent sense. It's kind of hard to turn down a lot of 99 cents games. Let's see if we can see anything here and go through it a little bit faster to see if what can we see that is really jumping out. 49 cents, I believe, is basically the lowest you can sell a game on Steam, because Steam, as I understand it, takes 30% of your sales and 30 cents on every transaction, and probably like 3 cents in processing fee. So on a transaction like this, it might be 30 cents per transaction is gone, which leaves only 19 cents. And then 3% of 5 is another penny or 2 off of it, so that would be 32. And then if you add another 3 cents in processing fee on top of that, that's 35 cents. So that leaves only like 14 cents that they're actually making in profit, or not even profit, just revenue. So yeah, I've never really seen anything go below 49 cents. So if you see something 49 cents, regardless if it's 90% off or 88% off, and you really want that game, you probably should buy it. The thing, of course, is going to come down to, I'll run into a lot of games that are 49 cents, and I could spend $100 on a bunch of 49 cents games, or I could spend $5 on a discounted AAA game from a few years back. So there's definitely some different choices that you have to decide here. And particularly for my YouTube channel, where I've started to kind of slow down on the amount of content I've been making, finding better quality games that go a little bit longer might be the way to go, instead of finding short, small games that don't last that long. Also, you have to be careful of games like this one, Quantum Conundrum. 98 cents right now, but it has some DLC, I happen to know, so you might end up paying a little bit more to get that DLC. Like, I kind of want all of the Legacy of Kain series, and getting it really cheap is good. I'm not sure all of these would even play easily, but that's certainly something. Whereas Trine Enhanced Edition for $2.24 seems a little expensive, or Deus makes Mankind Divided for $4.49. It's probably pretty expensive, because I'm fairly certain that there's some DLC in there you'd want to. I'm not sure about fighting games, so the Blaze Blue series and such. I'm still not sure if I'm going to cover any of them or which ones I should cover. Sleeping Dogs would be a little bit of a long game, but for $4.49, that's a great deal. Let's see. What else do we really need to comment on? This is like the only Silent Hill game on Steam, so it's almost impossible to justify actually purchasing that. A lot of these anime games are questionable at best. This one's a Metroidvania platformer. There's probably better Metroidvania games that I already own, whereas Space Channel 5 is Part 2 is something of a rhythm music game that has a niche following, so I'd want to cover that. I am looking for a decent fishing game. I'm not sure if Sega Bass Fishing from 2011 is the one. Like, I'd like to find one good fishing game at some point. Is a Puzzle Chambers game, an Escape the Room style game for 50 cents. Neptunia. PlayStation is also having an issue of censoring things in very bad quality censors too, that come to the PlayStation 4 ever since Sony PlayStation changed their offices to run out of California instead of Japan. And most recently there was a new Neptunia game, because this is a long-running series, where they just cropped out an image because one image happened to show a tiny bit of one of the characters' underwear. So yeah, Sony is having similar issues. Some of these games are terrible, like Dark Void, so even at $2 that's not worth playing. This is a game I want to play because it's terrible. This is a game that I kind of want to own just because I'd like to own all the Resident Evil games. Same for Dead Island. That's really just a whole group of bad games right next to each other. Bulletstorm full clip edition. I don't want to pay $8 for it because I already own Bulletstorm. I feel like I should have gotten the upgrade for free, and $8 is still way too much. I'm not sure it's really necessary to play Watch Dogs 1 to play Watch Dogs 2, so I could probably skip that. Or you run into games like Castle Crashers that I could play this, but it really should be played with 4 people. Mighty Number 9, another terrible game. I've played Castlevania Lord of Shadows 1, I want to play Lord of Shadows 2. $8 is quite a lot though. Garfield Kart, always looking for a good Mario Kart clone. This one's rated very positively. Here's Watch Dogs 2. Some fighting games. Duke Nukem Forever, another terrible game. I don't want to be a video game critic that only plays the games he knows are going to be great, though. That doesn't stretch my criticism muscles very much. So yeah, there are some games on here that are significant historically, but not really worth playing. I'm not sure if I really need to own all the Worms game, but they're on the wish list anyways. Yeah, when it comes down to putting your money where your mouth is, there's certainly a lot of opportunity here. And I said it at the beginning, nearly 2 hours ago, that I don't know if this Sophia's Curse horror game is actually worth owning. People like it though. But I said at the beginning, nearly 2 hours ago, that like all these sales are going to be highly specialized to how many games you already own. So if you don't own the things I already own, there would be a lot more games on my wish list. And if you friend me on Steam, you can certainly see what games I own. It's a little difficult. You have to go through the user profile page. But yeah, if you haven't played Portal 1 or Portal 2, for example, probably on discount because it's a Valve game. You could probably buy the entire Valve bundle pretty quick, pretty cheap right now. And that would be a game I would recommend buying. I want to play the Turing test. $4 is still a little expensive for as long as I think it is. Excuse me. I still try to hold to the idea of hours of gameplay per dollars. It's not a perfect system, certainly, but it makes sense in some ways to try to compare apples to oranges, to see just like Beyond Eyes. I think is probably an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of gameplay. $3.74 is a lot of money for that. 60 seconds here is discounted to $2.50. It's still pretty expensive at that, but it never really gets a great discount. Comparatively, Dead Island, maybe not the definitive edition, maybe buy the original edition if you can, but Dead Island Definitive Edition for 5 hours is going to give you a lot of $5 is going to give you a lot more gameplay in hours in this game than Beyond Eyes. And yet the prices really don't always reflect that. And sometimes it really just comes down to your decision. And I think we'll probably only scroll down to like 70% off. If anything is less than 70% off, at that point, it's probably not discounted enough to really consider it. Right now, I'm not particularly focused on getting any specific game on my collection of games in my Steam account. Like there's no game that I'm really twitching to buy and play, because I bought those games on sale last week, and that was Myst 3 and Myst 4, so I can continue that series and now do all the Myst games. So I don't even know what would be the next thing that I would be super interested in playing. I'm sure there are some games out there, but right now I cannot think of them. We're running into the end of the year, and everything is kind of wrapping up, so there aren't going to be any brand new games coming out probably at least into mid-January. So I'm kind of in more of a small indie mood than anything. I'd love to play Nier Automata, certainly. I think you'll get the upgraded Game of the Year edition of Nier Automata for free. I should do the research there if I was going to buy that game though first, because I don't want to get into a scenario where I have to pay some kind of upgrade fee. God Eater 3 is coming out eventually, so that might be a reason to play that. There's a lot of games that are coming out that it might make sense to go back and try to play the previous games in the series. There's like a humble bundle for Sonic games, so it might very well be cheaper to buy the humble bundle for Sonic games to get a bunch of Sonic games than it is to buy them on the sale. Let's see. Yeah, I'm really racking my brain as far as what would even be a major interest. And I really can't think of too much. 2018's not actually, in my opinion, been that good of a year for video games. It was a year that promised a lot of games, and then when every game came out, it came out with some kind of controversy or trouble. And so, in my mind, I'm back to the, like, Shadow of Mordor level. Like, I'd like to play Prototype 1 and 2. That's a really old game, and it's still $5 discounted, so, like, I don't think I'm ever going to get a better discount there. So, yeah, the Shadow of Mordor game, with its loot boxes being in it when it originally released, was not worth playing. Now that they've taken out the loot boxes and rebalanced the game, like, I'd be willing to play that game. And so that happened early in 2018. Everything past then, there's just been little controversies. I'd be willing to, since I was so kindly gifted, what was the game? This name, I have to remember it. Can't remember it. Cannot remember the name of the game I was gifted, which is a shame. Well, I guess I'll talk in generics then. Early this year or last year, someone gifted me a game that was a horror kind of first-person shooter game from some of the creators that made Resident Evil 4. And the sequel to that came out, and it was slightly different, but allegedly better. So I'd like to play that sequel, but I'd also have to remember the name of it. The Evil Within was the name of it. So yes, I was kindly gifted by a fan, The Evil Within, and I would like to continue down that path. Some of these Nancy Drew games are all over the place as far as their discount and their value. So it's like 70% off a bunch of these, but some of the games' original prices were $10, some of them were $6. So you're paying like $2.09 for point-and-click adventures that star Nancy Drew, thus they have a premium. Otherwise they should be a lot cheaper. But then also I believe there's a bundle, so if I bought a bunch of the $2.09 ones now and then waited late until others got cheaper, eventually I could buy the bundle to complete the collection and get the really expensive ones at a slightly bigger discount. You have to, there's a lot of different ways in which Steam can present the same thing in different ways to get you different discounts. Here we go, The Evil Within 2. So this is below the 70% mark that I was going to go to. $19.79, and that's excluding any DLC, I'm sure. So once you really get to it, it'll be really expensive. I'd like to cover this game in Press Jump. This is 98 cents. But only 67% off. I think 67 cents off is it's starting to go 66% off. You can kind of see that this will just keep on going and keep on going as far as discount. And I imagine if we just skipped all the way down here, we can find something that is just like 5% off or 1% off. Wouldn't be surprised if they let you do it. Nope, it seems like 10% is the minimum. So yeah, 10% off is not really much of a discount, but you can also see that there's things like Nier Automata not discounted at all. No hardware for Steam seems to be getting pushed or sold too. So yeah, I guess you can't buy The Walking Dead the final season on Steam now. Good thing I didn't buy it. And yeah, some of these are just kind of brand new games, so there's no discount there, and that's probably the right move. Here's a game I want to cover, but it's not discounted at all. 25th anniversary of Double Switch. I remember playing this as a kid. Probably was too young to be playing it, but whatever. So yeah, there's a decent amount, not too much on the wish list whenever there's a sale, that just never go on sale. And unless there was a specific reason that I could remember some of these games and want to buy them, it probably means I would never actually get around to buying them anyways. So yeah, there definitely are games on my wish list that will always stay on the wish list until, well, my plan is in 2020, at the end of 2020, to come back and do a secondary wishlist cleanup and remove games, see how I feel about the games that I want, because it's certainly over a certain amount of time. Like the Watchmen series is a great example of this. This is games that came out in 2009. Do they really have relevancy in 2018, 2019? Is it really worth $10 to buy 2 games that aren't even that good? On the other hand, you have things like Corpse Party, which is coming to Steam for the first time as a point-and-click visual novel horror game that is older, but it's first time on Steam, so new on Steam. Or there you have an animated version of Negligee, so they just took all the gameplay out, is what they're planning on doing. We'll see if that actually gets released. And I've already been through all of these games in the Steam Wishlist cleanup video series, so there's no reason to focus on every single game. The next thing I would look at on the price is just by price. So the Descent here is labeled as free because there's a free demo, but in actuality, to buy it, it's $4.94. So there's a way to manipulate this, which kind of sucks. A lot of these games that are labeled free do have some kind of DLC to unlock the rest of the game, and Steam kind of needs to work on that. Like Friday the 13th Killer Puzzle, the first few puzzles are free, and then you have to buy more via DLC. So they really need to update their storefront to show the actual value of purchasing a complete game, or it needs to say free with more DLC, because that's not really the case. Some of these games are free. Also, if you have a game that actually is free and then you click to install it on Steam, but then you cancel that install, at least for me, that both removes it from the wish list and removes it from your library list of games you own. So you technically own it in some background database that Steam has, but you really have no way of finding that game and installing it ever again, which is problematic to say the least. So if I'm just looking for low priced games, we could get Silence Asleep, Quell, Slash Ultimate. I don't remember what this is, so I'd have to think about that. Iron Ball, Iron Storm is an Arkanoid clone that I was thinking about buying. I could get the whole Quell series of puzzles. A lot of these look like horror games. Chips Challenge for 50 cents. Sure, like you might as well. Whereas The Adventures of Fat Man is a mixed point-and-click adventure, but 49 cents. You can certainly see for 49 cents it's easy to wave away the fact that a lot of these games are not the greatest AAA games with 200 hours of gameplay in them. Like this looks like a good candidate to buy. Not sure if I want to buy any of the anime games right now, particularly if they're visual novels. Like the thing about visual novel games too is if they don't have full voice acting, I personally then have to read all the dialogue, and that just kills my throat. Snail Trek is a point-and-click Star Trek parody old game series I'm thinking about but not super interested in. Mippy is a game where you play as a dog, which sounds interesting. This is an Adult Match 3 visual novel game at 80 cents. I'm not sure if the Penny Arcade series needs to be played as an RPG. It's like from 2013, 2012. I'm not sure if it has any relevancy at all nowadays. Let's see. I'm trying to see something here that is a total breakout. Like this is totally the game you should play. Honestly, Kane and Lynch, or like Just Cause, or the Legacy of Kane games, like with their niche following, they were good games at least at one point, or sort of good games. So I could see a reason for that. This is just a hidden object game for 97 cents. I'm not sure I want to play any more in hidden object games. Quantum Conundrum for 98 cents. This game, even though 67% discounted for 98 cents, is definitely high on the level. So these are the first two that actually look like something I'd actually want to add to the wish list. Maybe I won't spend so much money this sale. Maybe I'm going to hold back. I want to get Tiny Big. I want to get World of Goo. Maybe get Kane and Lynch. Let's see. A lot of visual novels still. I'm just not sure where I'm going to do that. But then Garfield, Gemini Heroes, good deals. I'm not sure about Sophie's Curse. Horror games just don't scare me, so I don't think I'd probably want to do that. Let's see. This is Chuck's Challenge 3D is actually the third game in the Chips Challenge series. They lost the license to the name Chips Challenge. So if I bought Chips Challenge, I should buy Chuck's Challenge 3D. Bird Story looks like it's an artsy style RPG. Might be interested in that. Might be interested in this. I'd have to double check to make sure this is all the chapters for 99 cents. Here's an electronics game that I guess is not early access. Like I have some experience with electronics, so this might be an interesting type of game to play. There's a different spin on chess. Some of the older games that have some relevancy with old Sega Master Drive. I could go for the Rusty Lake series, although I think some of that would probably cost me more to get the entire collection. Forgotten Hill Mementos is probably a Silent Hill clone, point and click. Silence the House looks like another horror game. Do I need so many horror games? Probably not, but there certainly is a lot of them. I'm trying to find one good Sudoku game out there on Steam. Let's see. A lot of hidden object games get labeled as point and click games when they really aren't. I was definitely not a Sega kid, so I want to own and maybe try out some of these Sega games. I may only spend 30 minutes on them. That is something certainly that I have to consider, is that a lot of these games I may only play for like 30 minutes and just be happy to own them, even if I don't do anything with them other than that. Do I really need the Painkiller series? Not really. I want to play this game because I played this as a kid, and I totally shouldn't have because it was mature. It's a forgotten game, certainly, and I think it deserves a remake. Probably won't ever get it. I want to get all the Aliens series. There's definitely some games I'm thinking about that I don't recall even seeing on the list, so I don't know what happened there. Whether I've actually purchased some games since the last time I looked at the wish list, or I've just not seen them. $1.24 for this puzzle game is a little more than I'd like to pay. I definitely need to go look at the Sonic Humble Bundle sale, because it looks like I could probably get a lot of these Sonic games cheaper through that. I mostly stick to the Humble Bundle store because I like to donate the money to a charity, all to a charity, and because it gives you Steam keys if you spend at least $1 anyways. So I don't tend to go to other storefronts though, because you know, some of the storefronts, even the Humble Bundle store sometimes gives you games that that don't come with a Steam key, and it's like, oh well, now I basically don't own this game. But also, by not buying it directly through Steam, sometimes I'll buy a bundle and 2 or 3 of the 10 games I already own. Here's Chips Challenge 2, so I could get that entire series. XCOM, I'm fairly certain I'm not going to go deep into trying to play the entire XCOM series anytime soon. I do want to play this game, Venetia, from 2015. This looks like it's a bit of a hidden gem, and it's $1.29. So that sounds interesting. Drake and the 99 Dragons is supposed to be one of the worst games ever. It's $1.39. That makes it historically relevant of some sort. I'd like to play it until I can no longer play it out of frustration and rage quit it. So what would be the price at which point I should stop considering a game just because it's on sale? Here's another one of the Rusty Lake series, and of course if I were click on this series, there's probably a bundle for the entire Rusty Lake games that would reduce the price. Now I played Reigns, the original Reigns, and this is the sequel. I've heard this is a lot better. So for $1.49, I'm willing to potentially play that again. This is Who Am I? The Tale of Dorothy is an interesting game because you have like a multiple choice, choose your own adventure story going on with a character with multiple personalities. There are a couple of Halo games on Steam, but none of them are the mainline games, so I'm not sure that that's really interesting enough to play. A normal Lost Phone for $1.49 might be an interesting little puzzle game. The original Worms for $1.60 is still a little expensive. A lot of these are certainly costing you maybe 10 cents more than you'd really like to play, or 60 cents more than you'd like to play. I'm thinking about maybe doing a lot of the Tom Clancy games, but I doubt I'd get around to doing too many of them. Or any of them, actually. I'll play Judge Dredd, sure, why not? Maybe play the quest. Here's the sequel to a normal Lost Phone. Or maybe this is the 3rd game in the series. But what I'm not really seeing here is, oh, this is an amazing game that everybody should play. I'm seeing a lot of forgotten, I wouldn't even really call them gems, just forgotten alright games. Games that are barely on the cusp of being worth mentioning. Like, again, I don't want to just play every game that was rated 10 out of 10 that have ever come out. I want to play some games that are mediocre. It's important to remember that. Here's another Judge Dredd game. But also, I don't want to get down to the point where I'm playing some extremely obscure, terrible game that has no relevance whatsoever, came out 10 years ago, 5 people played it and forgot about it, and now I'm bringing it up for no reason. Here we can see that the series of old arcade games are pretty expensive at $2 each. That's a lot of money for what you're getting there. And games like that in particular, I just want to own so I can say I own them more than anything else. I feel a lot better owning a game and then going and downloading a ROM of the same game and playing it on an emulator and having a better experience. Yeah, it really looks like Nancy Drew would be the one series to try to fill in some gaps. We could grab Maniac Mansion, and we could grab, ooh, I forgot about these, the LucasArts games that just got recently added. So Sam & Max Hit the Road, Zach McCracken, Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb, Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine. I think there's the 2 previous Indiana Jones games were already on Steam. Yeah, so the LucasArts series, if you just type in LucasArts, those would be a good idea. This is just a series of hidden object games that kind of have a continuing story, so if I was going to play any more hidden object games, I'd be interested in that, covering that series in particular. Let's see, what else is really jumping out? This is a Myst clone style game. It's at $2.50. It might be worth playing. I covered Shank 1, so I'd like to cover Shank 2. I want to play 60 Seconds, so I'd probably do that. You can't get Explosion Man anywhere, but you can get Miss Explosion Man. So that's it. Evil Genius is fine. Grow Up is fine. Poi is another game. So really, I think I'm going to have to look at the $2.50 mark and start picking some better quality games over just the 50-cent games. And if you're going to buy Sonic the Hedgehog 4, remember there's 2 episodes, so you're going to pay a kind of premium for the later Sonic games. Not that the later Sonic games are particularly even good, they're all over the place. I think Sonic Mania is good, and that's pretty much it. Maybe that's true from the beginning of time as far as Sonic's series. Let's see. And yeah, I'm mostly skipping over a lot of these because there's not even too much to say about them. There might be something to say later on about them, but yeah, the Graveyard, for instance, here, terrible discount, $2.49. This game is like at most 10 minutes long. Not worth that at all. I do want to own that game, but that's not a good deal. Let's see. Yeah, we're getting to the point where the price is really going to be a little too high to justify some of this. It's not going to feel like you're really getting much of a deal. Most video games on Steam don't stick to a high $10, $20, $30, $40, $60 price and never discount at all. Now I do have the is there any deal plugin installed on Chrome for Steam that tells you like the lifetime low price. So theoretically, if I had a much shorter wish list, I could click on every single game, see if this game is at a historically low price, and then purchase it. Fallout New Vegas makes some sense, although maybe it doesn't make so much sense now because some of the people who worked on Fallout New Vegas are now making their own game they've announced, so maybe you could even skip playing Fallout New Vegas. Also, this is the default version. When you actually go and see the ultimate version, which you have to go look at, you're going to realize that it's more expensive than it seems. The Prince of Persia series for $3.40. That's probably the best deal you're going to get. So, whereas Battle Chess 1 and 2 for $3.40, probably not the best deal you're ever going to get. Star Trek, I could see that not getting super cheap on some of these older Star Trek games. Which I'd want to own the Star Trek games even if I didn't cover them. Now we're starting to get some name recognition. I think eventually I will end up buying all the GTA games even if I don't play them. So, but that doesn't mean I have to buy them right now while they're on sale. There's probably better things that could be done with the money. Better games to play. I want to own the entire Fear series, and so I may have to bite the bullet and buy a bundle of the Fear series for a little bit more expensive than I'd like. Again, Saints Row 4, this is the default version. You'd have to buy a complete collection version, which will be more expensive. Castle of Illusion, a Mickey Mouse Disney game for $3.74. You may not get a better deal on something like that. Yeah, we are really hitting the point where I know some of these developers are just not going to ever lower or devalue the price of their game, even if they should. These are the old Alone in the Dark series for $3.74. If there's a bundle that lowered them a little bit more, that might be worth it, but also not a high priority to play those games. Not sure I really want to play the Zork series. Like, a lot of these games I'm not 100% sure about. I believe there was a lawsuit amongst about this game that recently got settled, but that's $4. $4 for the Turing test, even though it says it's 80% off, is in comparison still pretty expensive when you consider like Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, which I don't think is all of Metal Gear Solid 5, is $4. I'm not sure if that's the entire game or not. You're kind of getting a weird combination here. You have Carcassonne versus Far Cry 1, exact same price. Like, depending on what kind of gamer you are, you're going to get a lot more time playing one of these games versus the other. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure that there's... See, I want to get up to like the $5 range, because the truth is, although we've mostly gotten to the point where things are 50% off, it might be better, depending on what the game you actually want to play. It might be better to buy something that's not discounted at all. Like, if that's really what you want to play. For instance, that's kind of like the Nintendo Switch idea. Is like, I doubt you're gonna find Pokemon Let's Go Eevee or Let's Go Pikachu to be particularly well discounted this Christmas season. But if that's what you or your kids want to play, I certainly understand buying it at full price instead of going to, say, a used game store and buying some used like Wii U games instead, which certainly I've been on the other side of that transaction, where I have gone to used game stores and just bought a bunch of cheap used games and been somewhat disappointed in the amount of experience and entertainment I got out of that, when I would have preferred to probably buy something I was a little bit more hyped about. It'll do too, speaking of a game I'm hyped about. Yeah, $5 might be the best deal, so I may just pick that up. I'm not sure it's relevant at this point to play the Batman series, but I'm thinking about it, certainly. Again, I'm not sure it's relevant at this point to play Mass Effect 1 or 2. Since they messed up that series in Mass Effect 3 and Mass Effect Andromeda, like they're running a 50% good quality game ratio at best. Like, I do want this Umihari Kawase series. There's like 3 games in this trilogy. I don't know if it's really worth $5. Or The Girl and the Robot. This is kind of just like the first game in a trilogy made by like a single person. It's not a bad game, but I don't know if it's really worth $4.99. Or you have like Dragon's Lair here that's $5, which is a really old Laserdisc based game series that has a lot of historical relevancy, but you certainly are paying a premium. Like, this really should have been closer to $1.50 for each of these games. Space Ace, Dragon's Lair 1 or 2. Let's see. Is there anything else we really need to comment on? Like, in my pre-sorted list here of games that I haven't bought yet, as we're hitting, I think, the point, Sherlock Holmes games, yeah, I could see buying a bunch of Sherlock Holmes games. I imagine they won't ever be on discount below $5. But we crossed at this point from $4.99 to games that aren't even discounted for $4.99. And that's halfway through the list. So there's a long collection here of games that are just not discounted at all. Oh, here we jumped back into some, like Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine for $5.09, or this game Cradle, which I've wanted to play for a long time. Like, a lot of these games, I have memories and nostalgia from wanting to purchase them from years ago at this point, instead of actually having nostalgia for actually wanting to play it. So I want to continue the Monkey Island series, so I'm kind of willing to pay the premium of these Curse of Monkey Island and Escape from Monkey Island being added to Steam recently. These are more of the LucasArts game. I'd like to play the Princess Maker series, so like Princess Maker Refined, the remastered Princess Maker 1 for $5.49. Makes some sense. Like, as we keep going down in price, the quality keeps going up. I'm not sure it's relevant to play even the first Dead Rising game at this point, or any of them. Like, that ship may very well have sailed since they shut down the company making the Dead Rising series. If I'm going to cover a visual novel, Clannad and Clannad Side Stories would be the best visual novels to probably cover. But I'm not sure I'm going to. Or the Phantom Brave series, there's lots of them. If those are going to be the JRPGs that I play. See, and I just never get around to playing Bomber Crew, even though people told me to play it. Apologies for that. It's not on discount. Here's the next part of the Umehari Kawase series. And that wasn't really discounted. I don't know if Chuchel is worth $6. And then you have like Tropical Liquor, which is a match 3 nudity game that's at that high premium. Want to play The Room 3? I think I've played The Room 2. Maybe I haven't. Want to play Cogs? I don't think I've covered that. I think I played it on my cell phone. I've played so many games at this point I've forgotten what I've covered on my YouTube channel and what I haven't. Are we gonna find anything more? I want to play these 2 series, but not really discounted. Is it worth it to play Mortal Kombat 10 now that Mortal Kombat 11 has been announced? Was it ever worth it to play Mortal Kombat 10? That's an interesting question. Probably should buy a couple more Assassin's Creed games, as I'm trying to cover every single Assassin's Creed game in the series. Let's see, Bridge Constructor Portal. I would like to cover that, but probably not for $7. Like, the price is getting a little too high for anything short of a major AAA game to be at that price. Like, Trauma for $7 is definitely not worth it. You're gonna spend barely 2 hours playing Trauma, and that's really, really high. I really think some of these games not only don't go on discount, but actually raise their prices before some of these sales. Because yeah, there's just some high prices for some pretty old games compared to buying things that would have buying like used video games in a video game store where prices were really low. Homesick here is a game I've wanted to play. I'm not sure $7.50 is enough of a discount though. Now if you buy Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator, they're gonna come out with a newer version of this, so I don't know if you buy this discounted right now, would you get to that newer version. And see, this is a 3D version of a 2D game I already own. I'm not sure it's worth $7.50. Here's the third game in the Umahari Kawase series trilogy. That's an interesting series because you see that the character grow up throughout the process of the trilogy, which you usually don't see. Solo might be worth it depending on how long it is. Bullet Witch is almost certainly not worth it. Not at that price. Bullet Witch being one of the worst games I ever played on the Xbox 360s. Not sure if I really have time or interest to pay that much money for a Viscera cleanup detail. Let's see. I want to play Snake Pass. Do I want to pay $8 for it? Probably not. Like, it's getting really difficult. Like, if you were gonna buy $100 worth of games, you're getting down to 11-12 games if they're $8 each that you'd be able to buy, which is still a decent amount. If you're, you know, going to school or working a job, you probably couldn't play 11 or 12 games over the course of a year if they are long games. They could, however, as a YouTuber who only his job is to play video games, it's pretty easy to burn through a lot of these when there's only a couple hours of entertainment in them of note. This Angels of Death is a pretty mediocre RPG Maker game that got an anime built after it, so now it's high priced, overpriced. Or PewDiePie, undiscounted at a very high price because it has PewDiePie's name on it. Or the Five Nights at Freddy games. These are really high price. You can definitely get the Five Nights at Freddy games discounted for a lot less than that if you just wait for a sale. I guess we're probably going to just go all the way through this and just try to evaluate some of these games for the price that they're asking, because we're hitting the $9 mark and we're going to hit the $10 mark. Some of these are not super old games, so I can understand having to pay $9 for a full motion video game that is less than 2 years old. A little bit. But yeah, like 60 Parsecs is the sequel to 60 Seconds, and it came out in September. $9.89 is quite a high price for that game, I think. And see, I still really haven't run into any like AAA games. Prototype 2 for $10, Darksiders 2 for $10. Okay. Nothing amazingly new AAA developers. Quantum Break $10 because Quantum Break wasn't that good of a game. That's probably a decent deal. Tabletop Simulator for $10 is probably a decent deal if you like to play tabletop games. Let's see, Hob for $10. That will go down in price eventually, but I wouldn't be upset paying $10 for this. I wouldn't be upset paying $10 for Slime Rancher. I wouldn't be upset paying $10 for Sexy Brutale. All three of these games came out relatively a year ago, and they're only getting a 50% discount, but that's a good price for these games. Like Edith Finch in the same way. If you're gonna play the Final Fantasy 13 series, then $10 is probably not too bad for that. Also, so we're starting to see some major games. I don't know if I want to play the Wonder Boy series, but I probably do. And $10 is probably fine. Again, like, you're not getting great discounts. You're not getting a good deal, but you're getting a sale of some sort, better than playing anything else. The Danganronpa series, for I think you'd have to buy like 2 or 3 $10 products to get them all, but this is also a series that's coming to Switch, so as a YouTuber it might make sense for me to grab it. I'm not sure I really need to play a Naruto game. I don't know if Naruto's that big these days, but I would like to play the Dragon Ball FighterZ game. We're hitting the $10 point, and there's clearly at the $10 point some games that are just nowhere close to realistically priced. Like, in comparison, it just does not make any sense at all that you would want to play some of these games for $10. Like Into the Breach, I cannot justify spending $10 on that. Battle Chess 3, I believe here, for $10.19. It's not really worth it. See if we can find some other ones that, like, here's a game I couldn't cover on Steam, well, on YouTube, for $10.49. It probably isn't very well discounted even then. This is like a point-and-click hidden object game for $10. A lot of hidden object games are very, very overpriced on Steam. And I guess people fall for it. We're hitting the Lego games. I own almost all the Lego games, so it makes some sense to continuously buy more Lego games and just have a complete collection. Maybe I would be interested in playing the Adventure Time series or Absolver. It's like mixed reviews, so that's a hard one to sell on. Or I don't know if Ben 10 is still relevant enough to want to cover that. I want to own all the Mega Man collections, although that's a pretty high price for old games. I want to play this game at $11, $12. That's again a very high price. So we really are just hitting things that are really, really overpriced. Like here's a Doctor Who Match 3 game that's way overpriced because of Doctor Who names on it. Like here we are, Middle Earth Shadow of War. If you could get the full collection for $13, maybe that'd be worth it, but I bet you can't. Maybe I want to cover the Tales of series. I'm not sure. Want to cover this game Echo, but it's still pretty high at $13. I wouldn't be upset with buying Res Infinite for $13 though. Yeah, but a lot of these games are overpriced. I do want to play all the Shanti series, and maybe you just are never going to get a better deal on them. I do want to play the Mummy Demastered. Maybe you'll never get a better deal on that. I do want to play Dishonored 2 at some point. I imagine you'd get a better deal on that. Or Opus Magnum. Like, some of these games, not good deals. It certainly does feel like sometimes when you have a big Steam sale, some games don't really go on big discounts, and then the week later or 4 weeks later or 2 months later, that specific game will go on sale. So you kind of have to keep an eye out on all the sales. Like, I'd love to play Akiba's Trip $15 is way too expensive, particularly when you're comparing it to something like Hellblade's Senua Sacrifice, which even there, $15 is pretty expensive. I think Prey is a little bit longer, so $15 is a slightly better deal. But like Psychopath's Mandatory Happiness at $15 in comparison to Prey, not really a comparison at all. Is the Black Mirror remake for $15 that is probably not worth it, but the Council for $15, if this is all episodes for $15, that's probably a decent price. Whereas Super Hot for $15 probably not the best deal. It's important for me to build up in my mind the value of a lot of these games. Anamorphine, not worth $15, definitely. And like we do have more visual novels that catch my eye on attention every now and then, but I'm still not sure what or if I'd play. Disneyland Adventures, I think, is a decent game, and you probably wouldn't get it discounted much better anytime soon, so $15. If you've got a kid that loves Disneyland, this is probably a good deal. Rush, a Disney Pixar adventure, might be in the same boat. Cuphead, totally worth it at $15, I think. That should be in my wish list. I wanted to cover this game. It's not discounted at all. I'm not sure this ever is actually going to be discounted. I want to cover this game. It was just released a couple of weeks ago, so like I could buy it if nothing else happens. I would guess at some point I want to do Minecraft Story Mode Season 2. There's several Telltale games I probably should pick up. In all honesty, I should probably buy everything right now before it leaves the store and never comes back, because that is a serious possibility with Telltale games since they went bankrupt. Let's see, I'm thinking about doing Warhammer games, but I'm not really thinking about it too much. There's only one Onechanbara game on Steam, so that's hard to justify that. There's more Lego games to buy. I don't think at this point I would buy Kerbal Space Program even at $16. Like, not just to have it on this account, since I already own it on a different account. Let's see. Yeah, I just had like 5 or 6 games early on in running my YouTube channel that were on a different account. Hat in Time for $17. I do desperately want to play this game. That's probably not a great deal, but it's probably the best you're going to get for a while. Far Cry Primal. Probably the Far Cry worth playing, if any of them are worth playing. Pretty expensive still. Clannad is probably never going to go on a discount, so a lot of these games probably would never go on a discount because they're just too niche titles. There's no reason for the price to ever go down. I do want to play Resident Evil 7 at some point, and hopefully it would run well on my computer. It should. $20. If that includes the DLC, would be alright, but it probably doesn't. Assassin's Creed Origins, eventually I'll play that, and I'll probably get it less than $20. Evil Within 2, I want to get that and all the DLC, so that's a consideration. I probably should bite the bullet and do Devil May Cry HD Collection. I probably at some point would like to do The Witcher 3 DLC. Maybe I'd want to do the Injustice series instead of the Mortal Kombat series. Some more Lego games, more Star Trek games. I'm not sure if it's really important to play Dead Cells. I've been told that I need to play Shovel Knight, so yeah, I should probably add that. I want to play Return of the Obra Dinn, but it's not discounted at all, so how do I justify that? Am I just going to buy games because they're Even if they're not on sale, maybe, maybe not. That might be the way this should go. Like, I believe I have a coupon for Lucas 3, so probably would buy that. Hand of Fate 2. I do want to play this game eventually. I think I could wait longer though, because I only played Hand of Fate 1 a few months ago, and so I had enough of that experience. I don't want to burn myself out. I want to play this game, and it's probably not going to be discounted much more than 25%. So even though you're paying quite a premium for this weirdo Japanese game, that's probably the best deal you're going to get for a while. Dragon Ball FighterZ, probably the best deal you'd get for that too, at $24. But you're talking big time money now. $24 for some of these games. Or the Zero Escape series, I totally want to play that, but do I want to pay $24 for it? No. Would I play the same $24 for Schoolgirl Zombie Hunter? Let me drink some water 1 second. Yep. The answer is definitely no. I'd much be willing to spend $24 on this than that. Or even Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash. So you can see once we hit these high prices, the comparison is all over the place. Very niche games like Princess Maker 5 are the same $25 as the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy, as the Zero Escape Nonary games. All over the place as far as niche titles that a lot of people wouldn't even recognize. And then we're hitting the $30 point where Ni no Kuni 2, Shadow of the Tomb Raider starts at $30, and this probably is more than that. Let's see, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, really expensive. Street Fighter 30th collection for $30 with mixed reviews. Disgaea 5, the Disgaea series, maybe I already own a lot of the previous ones, but I bet the older versions in this series are slightly cheaper. Here we have Shanti for no discount for $30. Or here you have Steven's Sausage Roll, is a puzzle game from 2016. I don't believe it has ever gone down at all, and the creator just doesn't care, so he's charging $30 for what is admittedly a really hard puzzle game, but totally not worth $30. And that's a case of, well, the free market really isn't deciding, because supply and demand would say there's a infinite amount of supply of this game, and there's a demand to buy it at a lower price, but since one person is controlling the price, and that's the creator, the price stays high. You could get into bigger arguments of economics about, at one point, is refusing to sell your product at a reasonable price just hoarding items and doing less benefit for society than if you were forced to sell your product at a certain price? I don't think we'd do We Happy Few, particularly at $35. Here's Danganronpa Volume 3 for $35, $36, so that's really expensive. Whereas Dragon Quest 11 at $36, that's going to be a really long JRPG, so that you're going to get a lot of money, a lot of time out of that for your money, compared to some of these other things. It really is just all over the place. Monster Hunter World, you can get hundreds of hours out of that gameplay for $40, so that's not a problem. I would say Dark Souls, you can get a lot of time out of that, but you're also going to get a lot of frustration out of that for your money. Like to see something here that's particularly short. I imagine Darksiders 3 is particularly short for $60 compared to some of these other things, like Nier Automata. If you go for all the endings, is probably way longer than Darksiders 3. A lot of these are Japanese tie-in games. At this point, I think we've hit games that literally aren't even on the storefront anymore. So nothing gets marked above $60, but there are plenty of games that actually are more than that. So yeah, Telltale's out of business, so that game is, the final season is not listed on Steam anymore. This remake, if you don't know, Jack, is I think owned by like 2K, and they didn't list it anymore. This game was like a Kickstarter only game that didn't get well received. It's not the newest Leisure Suit Larry game though. I think Hitman 1 is no longer available for purchase because buying Hitman 2 just gives you Hitman 1. I don't know why the Raven is not available. Maybe it's, some of these may only be available in bundles. GTA 2, I don't know why that wouldn't be available. Now, if it was a case of Steam just not selling the game anymore, it should just magically disappear from the wish list, so that's not the reason why those would be available. So that's now been about 3 hours that we've done shopping, and I think the path for me is going to be more about buying games that fills in some gaps in some of the more expensive things, even going as high as $15 to even $20 for some games, instead of buying a bunch of small cheap games, which I've certainly filled out my inventory by looking and buying a bunch of small cheap games that oftentimes I'm not really interested in playing, so I'm not sure how that works. So then the only other thing you could do is, if you didn't have a wish list and you were looking for things, they are selling the Steam controller. I imagine the Steam controller will be the last bit of hardware that they get rid of until they announce some new hardware, which I'm fairly certain that that's exactly what they're going to do. You could look at popular new releases and all new releases if you want to look at that. You could look at top selling if you just want to follow mob rule and, you know, follow the crowd. But if you come over to like under $10, you could see there's some games here that are technically under $10, and that's why those games are under $10. I believe I have a plugin that says if they're green, I have them on, I already own them. Yeah, I already own Borderlands 2, for example. So yeah, green, I already own it. Blue, it's on the wish list. So you can see there's a decent amount of games here that I didn't know I owned Undertale. Interesting. Like, I have too many games. And there, some of these games like Darkest Dungeon, I probably don't have the DLC for. There's a lot of games here that would be at that top of this list where it's like, yeah, sure, if you don't own Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2, get the Borderlands Handsome Jack collection, or Borderlands 1 and Borderlands and the Handsome Jack collection. If you don't own Bayonetta, try Bayonetta. There's definitely a lot of games here that make sense that I've already played, covered. You can find my coverage through the playlist tab on my YouTube channel. But yeah, there's still a significant amount of things on the blue, things that are wish listed. So haven't gotten to the point where I own all the games, and owning the games is the easy part. The hard part after that point is to actually play and cover the games. I basically want to own all of these Sega games. They're not usually worth it. There's a big bundle that you can buy, and I plan on just getting the whole bundle at some point. It's important to also mention that the reason why Steam key trading sites exist is because people buy games that they don't have any intention of actually playing. So you don't want to go crazy with it either. So yeah, there's definitely some games here that did not make it as far as my very lenient quality sorting, quality selection. And see, these are just $9.99 or lower, and if you really want to go cheap, you can go under $5. Again, this is a Valve game, so you can buy the entire Valve bundle pretty cheaply. Some of these games are maybe worth it, even though they're mixed reviews. Some of these games are probably worth it for other people, but just not for me because they're not my kind of game. I definitely am going to be left at the end of this video though with a lot more work to do. Certainly there's just a lot of thinking that I'll do, and basically what I'll do is I'll take a break after this, think about it for several hours before I even come back to the Steam page and start adding things to the shopping cart, and then I will build up a shopping cart that probably has somewhere between, you know, $600 or $700 worth of games in it, and then I'll do a secondary pass through it and go, which of these games do I really want, and which of these games am I willing to wait to get later, or do I potentially not want to get. Be careful on things like Fallout 3 because it's a Fallout 3 Ultimate Edition. You can see I own slightly more of the games that are selling for less than $5 than I do for the ones selling less than 10. But yeah, I need to take a break. I need to let my mind think about it. A lot of games not jumping out as things that I absolutely need to buy right now. I could be pretty frugal, you know. I very possibly could just buy nothing if I wanted to, but there are a couple things to fill in some gaps and just, you know, maintain a budget, since I budget to spend money during one of the 3 sales. And to be fair, I didn't buy anything in the Halloween sale. I didn't buy anything in the November sale. This was definitely the sale to buy things in because of the trading card and badges stuff, which really doesn't matter, but it's there nonetheless. And yeah, you'll just keep on scrolling down, and this will just keep on happening. I did mention, if you wanted to see, after you friend me on Steam, if you want to see the games I do own, what you can do is you can go to my profile, which has games owned under this game collector profile, and you can click that. And certainly I have no limitation there as far as games I own. Like, I have quite a lot of them. Certainly I've covered quite a lot of them, but this would be, for the most part, recommendations of games worth playing. Law and Order Legacies, not so much. These are games kind of in the order that I've played them recently, so it's kind of in the order of games that I've covered. Yeah, I'm not sure that there actually is any game on this list up that I would have any time on record that I didn't cover on my YouTube channel. And if I didn't cover it, it's probably because of some very weird thing, like a content ID copyright claim. Yeah. Let's see, as I'm scrolling down here, looking at all these games, yeah, I've covered all of these on my YouTube channel up until a point, and we haven't hit that point yet. So that doesn't mean I did a full playthrough on all these games. Okay. So I think you could probably say I've covered almost all the games up to Darksiders. I haven't really covered Neverland. Some of these games I ran because I was getting card drops on them for trading cards, and so I haven't covered them yet. But yeah, a lot of these down here that have no time, I did cover Seventh Guest, but the rest of these are games I haven't covered yet. So I guess that's the way you would do it, is like up until this point, although I did cover this game, I used a different program to launch it. So the rest of this list, which the indicator is right here, is games that I plan on covering, or DLC that I plan on covering, and things like that. So I've got plenty of games, but the other part of that is 2018 has been very, very bad for small-time YouTube content creators. Only a couple of months ago did I finally give in the ghost and form a Patreon. Right now, a lot of people don't want to use Patreon, so I probably need to figure out some other service to also be on. As far as donations, YouTube kicked all small content creators out of the YouTube partner program, so I cannot run ads on any of my videos where at the beginning of the year I was making about 7 cents a week on views. I probably at this point would have been making, 21 to 30 cents a week. Not real money, not money you can live off, but at least a penny, an attaboy, something to say, hey, your content's at least this good. But until I could get 8,000 subscribers, which I'm at 307 now, that's not going to be a case. And in the meantime, as they kicked small-time content creators out, they introduced super chats for people with 10,000 subscribers, which, yeah, that would never work for me either. So without making it an extremely long story, the two ways right now I'm asking people to support my channel for all the content I create is to either look down in the description and support me through Patreon, which could be $1 a month, which would be very nice and helpful. If you did it right now, you'd be the first person to ever be my Patreon supporter, and as that grows, I will start to think about adding more things to Patreon as far as bonuses and rewards, but right now there aren't any. And then if you don't want to do a monthly donation, you can certainly, if we zoom out here, you can certainly click on this and then send through Steam to anybody you're friends with a digital card. So you can just click this. You can send $5 or a custom amount over $5, or $10, $25, $50, or $100. So that's like a one-time gift that you can send to your friends. Also, if you're not going to gift me anything, you can still friend me on Steam. I'm perfectly happy with that. Or you can just, find my wish list, which is linked down below also, and pick a specific game. So if there's a game that's only like 99 cents or 49 cents and you want to gift that to me, that's certainly helpful too. Anyways, that's going to be it for the stream. I hope that was somewhat helpful. It was a long experience that I was going to have to go through anyways, and one of the things I've tried to do more recently is take people along with me on journeys like this where your effort and your time is going to be spent, my effort and time is going to be spent, so I might as well turn some content out of it and live stream it. That's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos because that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. If you want to friend or follow me on things like Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, or Battle.net, all of those links are down below in the description. I need to update a lot of those too. I will do that in a few months. Since, like, I doubt very many people are going to be using Google+ since it's shutting down, and Tumblr seems to be somewhat imploding also. But I guess that's enough editorializing it. That's it for this stream. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.